think this is good. Yeah. Cool. Hi, everybody. My name is Sean. Going to talk about imposter syndrome tonight. And yes, I am a product lead at a health tech company called Birdie. We build software for the social care space. I started my career as a PM at Microsoft, and I have been doing product work for about 15 years for my career in tech. That's usually the intro that I would give if we were meeting for the first time in a professional setting. But oftentimes, I have a wonder, too, if I really should be introducing myself as a product person, and if I am a good enough PM, if I'm the right kind of PM, if I got the right stuff, if I'm what some might say is a real product manager versus someone that's just been kind of winging it through his career. So we can get back to that feeling in a second. So that's what the talk is about. The main thing I wanted to start us off with is just to kind of frame the challenge that I think we all experience as product people here tonight. What's brought us together. More and more, we are being asked to do more with less as product people, right? We're always in this position as leaders of cross-functional teams, generally of specialists, who know a lot more about their craft than we do about theirs. And this is often the case for folks that are working in larger companies. You're not the one that is writing the code and debugging it. You're not the one drawing up the designs. You are not running the operations desk, customer support, marketing and sales. They all know what you do, and you don't necessarily have all the ins and outs about what they do. And yet, you are still, as a product manager, meant to manage the team's outcomes collectively, and the success of that project is kind of on your shoulders as a product manager, even though you're not the expert in what everyone else is doing. And if that wasn't hard enough, then you probably get people like this in your feed too, right? It seems more and more there's a lot of folks from this school of thought that there's a right way to do product management and there's a wrong way to do product management. And I think if you haven't read certain books, or if you're not practicing a particular framework, folks like this might come and say, you know what, you're not really doing real product management the way that their frameworks and their methodologies might be teaching. And I like to try to ignore this as much as I can, but every now and again it gets to me too. I think about this and I wonder, well, hang on. I've been working as a product person for a while, but my last role, I was at a company called Red Badger. It's a product consultancy, but I was doing product more from the outside in. I didn't really have that title of product manager. And some of these folks, they can be quite prescriptive about like, well, in this school of thought, product owners, no product owners allowed, right? Like product managers are the real product managers, the ones that do the strategic work. And if you're doing a lot of stuff that's quite tactical, delivery focused, that's not really what they would call product management. It gets to me after a while. I think it gets to a lot of people too. And when I started my career at Microsoft as a PM, they didn't actually call me a product manager. I was hired in as a program manager. The role has evolved over time. And so that always kind of gets back to me. I'm like, well, I didn't really have that title when I started my career. Do I have the right to call myself one now? So you're probably like, well, Sean, Microsoft's a well-established brand. It's a big tech company. You've got many, many years of experience. So it's not that big a deal, right? And that's kind of what I thought too. And then I was looking for a job last year. Before I found Birdie, I was a bit humbled by the state of hiring in product right now. I think it's important to share this sort of thing. Even for someone like me that's been around the block for a while, I still had a hard time finding the role at Birdie. And just for folks who haven't seen this kind of visual before, on the left, you've basically got all the different types of ways that I applied to organizations. There's a kind of swim lane that goes through the middle of the process and then effectively the outcomes at the end. And so, as much as I would try to ignore the naysayers out there, you keep hearing rejection after rejection, companies telling you, hey, it's not the right fit, it's not the right time. After a while, you start hearing that and you start thinking, oh, they're saying I'm not good enough to be a PM. at that company. I'm not good enough. I'm not skilled enough product manager to work with you guys. And it adds up after a while when you've been rejected more than 100 times. The other thing I didn't tell you about, starting at Microsoft was I got rejected from Facebook and Amazon, and I think multiple times from Google. I kept trying to get in, and so there was something that was planted in my the back of my brain very early in my career that maybe I didn't have what it took to be like a FANG PM, right? So glad I got in with Microsoft. But these are the sort of things that I think trigger me, and I wonder if it triggers other people too, because I feel like this is what imposter syndrome really feels like at the end of the day. Kind of robs you of those feelings of success that you've had and makes you think, maybe I'm not actually as good as I thought I was. But then I found that there was a choice, right? I could give into that ethos and that methodology and be like, yeah, they're right, I don't know what I'm doing. Or maybe I could choose to believe something else. And so I spent time connecting with folks. I would spend time in the communities like this. And the more I started talking to folks, I would really hear a lot of stories that resonated with me as well, similar to my experience. And it got me thinking, you know what, like, it's not just me. You have to have that first conversation and kind of go past the elevator pitch a little bit to get into, okay, these are the struggles, and it's not always something that we talk about so openly, but as you hear more and more of them, you start to put together that picture that like maybe it is just tough out there right now. And so that was the main idea I wanted to share with you today, is like, maybe we're all just trying our best as product people, and it's a very dynamic field, and we're doing our best to kind of stay up with it. And even the experts, they know a fair bit from their experience, but they're not infallible, right? They make mistakes too. They don't always know how to call the shots. So maybe we're all actually imposters at the end of the day, and maybe that's okay. Something that we can lean into. You might find that some of us have a bit more bluster than others, but I like to think that that's maybe just a bit of a coping mechanism for highly ambitious folks that are also trying to figure this out. I remember actually, I think it was Jason came to a previous event and shared some really interesting advice when you're looking at this kind of content out there and thinking about, hey, are they trying to elicit an emotional response from you? Maybe there's something in that for them, and it's kind of useful to look at the incentives for what people are posting and thinking about that and like, okay, maybe they're not playing the same game that I'm playing anymore. So it's always useful to look at, are folks still practicing as product people? They still have skin in the game, and do they have a bit of dirt under their fingernails, or are they playing a different game now? That might help you kind of weed through the bluster. But I think one of our most powerful skills as product people is our ability to frame problems and sometimes reframe them. And so I'm going to give another shout out to a former speaker, Paul, at this event, shared previously some really interesting techniques from the world of improv that could be used to make, I think, a lot of folks really think of product in a different way, just in terms of trying to improvise and think on your feet. And so I think that's actually a really powerful reframe for, we're not necessarily just imposters, we're really improvising here. Being a generalist in a room of specialists is actually a really cool place to be. You know just enough, and you have just enough context to keep up with what everyone else is saying. You can approach problems from a different perspective and create a divergent point of view and a different way of thinking to get those teams towards those outcomes. So just like before, I think some of us are better at embracing this than others. And like I said, I still sometimes get a little bit in my own head about it too. But I think it's helpful for us to talk about this as a group and just lean into that, we're all doing our best and we're all just trying to keep up. So that is the gist of it. One thing I wanted to leave you with was a recent post from a guy named Adam Grant. He's a professor and an author of a few books, and so it's just a helpful reminder from him. He's from like an organizational psychology background. What are some realistic expectations that we can set about ourselves based on what is in and out of our control? And I think that realistically, thinking about these expectations that you set on yourself, sometimes it really just helps to be kind to yourself. Think about the things that are in your control. And I think that can go a long way towards keeping these feelings of imposter syndrome at bay. So if any of that resonated with you, I've got a QR code too. And I've been working on a project just to share some of these learnings with early career product managers, folks that are maybe feeling some of that self-doubt as well, and just saying, hey, we've got this. We're all working together through this. And there are those of us that I think could be sharing more about the experiences that we have, because you often hear the great elevator pitch of how we got to where we are and not necessarily all the stumbles along the way. So if that's something that's useful, feel free to check out the link or come talk to me after, or we can talk about in Q&A. But there you go. Thank you very much.